Today is August 9th, 2021, and we had some unfortunate news yesterday of the passing of John Meadows, aka Mountain Dog. And for most of you who have known of him, it's pretty impactful for the fitness industry. But for those of us like myself who were coached directly under him, had more of a personal, intimate relationship with John, it's hitting us pretty hard. And this video is partly to help me kind of process and grieve, but also to shed light on John as a coach, what some of you might not have seen from Instagram, YouTube, or meeting him in person, and also talking about how we can continue to support his family and carry on that torch even after he's gone. So to start, those of you who know my background and story know that I'm originally from Ohio, and that was how I first met John. I was with my first bodybuilding coach at the time, and she was always talking about John Meadows, and I was like, who is that? So I started researching him, and I realized that he did a bunch of seminars, was IFBB Pro, what have you. So in October of 2016 was the first time that I met John in person at an Elite FTS event. It was actually a Halloween weekend, and I chose to go to a seminar about fitness instead of dressing up and drinking. Go figure. And just really cool to hear him speak his passion for the sport. And at that time, I was working with my coach, and then I believe it was 2018, was when I started to explore other coaching options. And I reached out to John after meeting him in person at the Arnold Classic. And I sent him my pictures of what I looked like at my first show and where I looked now. And he was basically like, okay, sure, I'll take you on. And at that time, he wasn't taking on any new athletes. So pretty humbling that he would take me on. And so we got started with an off season and focused on growing. And we did an off season until May of 2019 that I did a local Georgia NPC show in figure. I moved, so from starting to work with John, I had already moved down to Atlanta and was working with him 100% online, but he emphasized to me, he's like, I'd love to train my athletes in person. Can you come up to Ohio at least a couple times a year to train? And I was like, done, I can do that. So we got started, and I ended up winning figure overall championship at a Georgia show, and then a week later I went to Junior USA's and ended up placing 4th in figure class B. And was super excited, like best conditioning I ever had on stage. I loved my look. The judges' feedback was they loved my structure, but my upper body had to grow to balance to my legs. And it's pretty discouraging because at that time I was going through some stuff with like injuries and my chest cavity and my shoulder and my first set of implants I had some issues with, and John supported me through that. But along the way, September of 2019 is when they announced the new wellness category. So we set our souls on growing my body for wellness, focusing on lower body, glutes, grow. So come right after Junior USA's actually, David and I got engaged, and so life, evolved in that way. And John actually knew he was going to propose because we went to Asheville in July right after the competition. It was super fun. And that was kind of like, as we started to develop more of a friendship, but also he was more of a father figure for me, and talking about the relationship and giving me some tidbits about how to be more supportive in a relationship. So from there, we continued to grow into wellness, and I did my first wellness show in July of 2020. I won the overall at the Mel Harbor Classic, and even though COVID was crazy for a lot of people, was able to still train. I flew up to Ohio and trained, and we just kept chugging along like nothing was different. And after Mel Harbor, I went to Junior USA's, ended up placing 4th in wellness. Feedback was come in more conditioned, so that following week went to Pittsburgh. I flew up there by myself, which was an interesting experience, and I'll hit on this a little bit more, but every time I get off stage at a show, I call John. That's like the first thing I do is give me a call, let me know how you did, let me know how it went. So that's what I did, and ended up placing 3rd at Pittsburgh. So it was a little discouraged that we couldn't get me up closer to getting a pro card, but it happens. And after that show, it was like, okay, let's focus on growing, because the feedback was just grow my glutes. So from there, we just took time off and ran labs, realized I had some hormone imbalances, metabolic damage, and that was pretty much where everything started to cascade. And coming into this year, 2020, I originally wasn't going to compete, but then I got really excited and overzealous when they announced that the wellness pros, the top 2 of every pro show, could qualify for the O. And that's one of my big goals, was to do the Olympia. So, prepped for Universe, which those of you saw that video, ended up 8th. My conditioning wasn't where it needed to be. My body was fighting me this entire prep. He pretty much had to starve me into the show, and we had to manipulate some supplements to get me to look better and harder and be able to not lose muscle. And honestly, like, through that, John was the best coach that I could have asked for in that situation. He asked me a couple times, he was like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to prep? And I've never heard of any coach asking their athlete, are you sure you want to keep prepping? Because he knew I was going through a lot, and he knew my body was not in a good spot, but I didn't want to quit on him. So we kept going, and it is what it is. And I do remember after that show day calling him, and I was like bawling my eyes out in the hotel room. You guys who saw that video know that all too well. And he's like, you know, we did what we could, and you have the heart of a champion, but you know, this is a learning experience, and everything in life is a learning experience. And after that, I was, you know, trying to get my bearings with everything, and life kind of unfolded. And you know, there's more to just John as a coach. He became more of this mentor to me when it comes to just wanting to be a better coach myself for my clients, and understanding health and women's health and PEDs more, and also understanding nutrition, but also understanding training programming. And then comes the life piece, talking about finances, how to have stable finances, how to build a strong relationship and marriage, and balance that with someone who's a workaholic. And John and Mary have had their own challenges in their marriage, and he was giving me some marital advice. And those are the conversations that I'll never forget with him. And most people don't have that experience. But what most people do see is they see his passion on his training videos and his Instagram. And you see that just fire in his eyes when he can pick up a set of heavy dumbbells and do some rows or some chest press. Or he's able to get in the squat rack and actually squat heavy, which is like his favorite thing, especially because he had issues with his lower back and his groin and everything else under the sun. So when you get to train with him in person, and obviously we won't get to experience this again, he pushes you past your limits, but he does so in a way that is so encouraging. It just makes you want to do more reps, and you're like, okay, I need to do 3 more, and okay, you gotta do 2 more, and John says, okay, 2 more, and he says, don't stop, and he's like, okay, now do pause reps, and now do a hold, and it's like, okay, John, I'll do this just for you. Like, he's so convincing. And it's one of those, like, I've never worked with a coach who was that encouraging, but so, and it's uplifting and motivating. It makes you want to work hard for him because he's just so full of love for the sport and for helping people grow physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's something that we won't get to necessarily see anymore. But overall, like, John just wanted people to live their best life. And he's had so many people in his lifetime who screwed him over and were bad business partners and were bad-mouthing him, talking negatively about him. But I can't remember any days that I talked to him or saw him that he ever talked down to anyone, that he never had a smile on his face and was not positive about his life. Even if there were some days where he was getting just beat one thing after another that we might perceive as going wrong, he still kept his chin up and he kept moving forward. Because to him, he was doing what he loved and helping people along the way, and just had this tenacity and grit to keep going. And I think he's one of the few people out there that had that light and that fire, but he also was very firm in his beliefs. He was a Catholic and a family man, and he put his wife and his 2 children first. And he would do anything for them. And that's why he worked so hard, was the livelihood was for his family. And even Mary was a stay-at-home mom, raising the boys. She would help him with some of his work stuff, but he would help her too with the boys and making sure that he could show up as a father and as a husband. And that's one of the biggest things I respected about him. But more importantly, that a lot of people don't know is, you might know, but you probably don't. As a coach, he used very minimal drugs in women. John straight up told me the first time I talked to him about coaching, I'm not a fan of drugs with women. And if you're one who wants to try and push drugs, I'm not the coach for you. And I've heard him turn down several women that reached out to him and wanted to push drugs, and he's like, that's not what I do. I keep my women feminine and I keep them strong and healthy. And that's something that's missing in today's industry that needs to be brought back, which is why I've gotten so passionate about it. Is we don't need to run dosages that are stupid high and frequently or year round. Be smart. You don't need to run drugs that there's no scientific backing on or have been proven to hurt people in the long run and show metabolic damage. Every person's different too. So one person's poison is another person's awesome physique. You never know. But honestly, that's the opportunity that we have in this sport, is to bring this light of positivity and health, training hard, using compound movements, not just baby weights and bands, and bring it back, especially for women. So I didn't put any makeup on because I was like afraid that I was gonna cry, but it's kind of nice just being able to talk about and think on like the good memories that I had with John, and him telling me about his new granite supplements coming out and getting to taste them. And I realized that we did like 15 videos together, which is a lot. And I feel like so blessed that I had the opportunity to work with him so closely, because most never will and never got to know John as John. So that's something I hope that we can continue to do, is share his good message and his positive vibes, and support his family too. So there's a few things that we can do now. Number one, be the light for the industry, and stop bashing other coaches, stop bashing other athletes, quit gossiping about stuff that doesn't matter. Focus on being your best self, supporting and lifting up each other, and cheering on other people when they succeed. That's missing. We need more of that. And we can continue to do that, but we can also help support John's family by his brands and companies that he's got right now. Granite Supplements being one, Iron Rebel. Then he's got his Mountain Dog Diet program site. You can buy his programs still. They all exist. And I've used several of them and they work great. So no matter if you're experienced or beginner, he's got everything under the sun there. And then last but not least, his YouTube channel. John's YouTube brings in a lot of money, so like passive income for the family. So if we can continue to subscribe and like and share his videos and keep that library there, it's gonna make a huge difference for the family. So I know it's gonna be hard for myself. I don't even know what's next as far as my coach, what that's gonna look like, because I need to take it one step at a time. And that's just what John would tell me, is focus on the positives. And he'd be really mad at me if he knew how bad my sleep was the past few days. So I need to work on that, because that's like John's #1 rule. He's like, your physique's not gonna change if you don't get sleep. There's one prep in particular, I got like no sleep at all. Like I get 3 hours a night, and he's like, you need to get Ambien or something. I never did, I should have. But needless to say, he's gonna be missed. But everything happens for a timing and a reason. So we can use this to change the trajectory of this industry. Make it better. Make bodybuilding something people can be proud of again, and not just something that people look down upon because they think all it is drugs and strict dieting and cardio. Long live John, and let's use the hashtag WWJD. What would John do?